Hi, I'm Tim Corley with LISSMAC Corporation. We're coming to you from upstate New York to hear from Samuel & Sons about how the LISSMAC Deslag-Line is doing in their facility.
My name is Don Clark and I'm the operations manager here in Blaisdell. Been with the company for about 14 years, but my background has been about 40 years in the steel service center business, working for a couple larger, large operations, and 40 years experience in the plate processing as well as other service center activities.
And I read that on the website, Samuel started back in 1855 with 2 people, and now how many people are with the company?
I think we're up to about 5,000 people right now. It's a very proud family that has a great company, and
so still family owned as well?
Yeah, still. Mark Samuel is a primary owner, and he's up in Ontario, and he's very active and involved in the company, and very successful. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At this facility, how many cutting machines do you have?
Okay. Currently, we have 3 plasmas and 2 oxys. One plasma is primarily for stainless processing. The other 2 are for carbon, primarily for carbon, 100% carbon. Okay. And we have 2 oxys, fairly large oxy tables.
What size are those?
The one table is 100-foot long cut capacity by 20 foot, and the other oxy table is 20 foot by 40 foot cut capacity, and the 2 plasmas pretty much mimic the oxy tables. So,
okay.
So yeah, they're very large table. We have a large capacity with large cranes. We have rail access in every bay, so we can bring our material in pretty long. When you're in operations, the biggest area of challenge is packaging. It's the biggest backlog in any producing place is packaging.
Okay.
You know, we're very good at producing the parts.
Yeah.
The challenge is getting them cleaned up and out the door. Yep. And we're always looking for ways of continuous improvement, and this is definitely a good tool to have in your tool belt.
So when a customer makes an order, it goes through the office sends the order out to the plasma cutting guys. They have a drawing to produce a part. They cut so many parts, then it goes where? Into the packaging department for preparation for shipment, which includes, cleaning the slag or dross off it. Depending on what the customer requires, they all require different specifications for cleaning, and then we follow whatever their leads are, because obviously they're paying for the process. Right. So some are a little more, on more of a quality part. And the LISSMAC kind of one machine fits all. Mm-hmm. There is no backing off on whether you're doing the top or not doing the top, or grinding the bottom or moving the slag. The LISSMAC kind of takes care of that. So every part that comes out of LISSMAC is pretty much consistently the same. Mm-hmm. So when you have, moving on forward, when you have to clean parts manually, you may have a few people in the department, 3 or 4, and not everyone does it the same way. When it runs through the LISSMAC, every part that goes through there comes out. If you have a large volume order, every part's identical as far as the LISSMAC is concerned. Before you had the LISSMAC, how did you guys handle this chipping and deslagging?
Chipping, actually just by hand with a chipping tool, and then flap wheel grinders, right angle grinders, electric grinders, air grinders. Okay. A lot of labor goes into the preparation of preparing it for shipment and cleaning the product off of the residue from the burning process or the plasma process.
Did you ever have any injuries with either the sparks flying from the hand grinding, or maybe the grinding wheels slip off and hurts?
We have a good proportion of the injuries usually go to eye injury, although you wear glasses and shields, and we take other precautions, but there's plenty of dust in the air, and especially in the summertime when you're sweating and stuff, if you wipe your arm off by your eye, you could drag dust into it. So we had a lot of potential, as well as the other potential with hand injuries and stuff, but mainly a lot of eye injuries was from all that activity. We reduced that quite a bit since we got the LISSMAC, because there's a dust collector unit on it. All that dust that comes off of those particular parts are contained, and so that's been a big improvement.
And any sparks or chips of slag, they're pretty well contained in the machine?
Oh yeah, Okay. It's a job cleaning them out. Everything stays in the machine, and you have to be pretty diligent about getting it all out of there, because there's quite a bit of that product left after you burn, and it basically goes in the dust collector or drops down into the bottom of the tray of the LISSMAC. So
that brings a good point. What do you do to maintain your equipment? How do you do that? What's your cleaning process?
For the LISSMAC?
Yeah, for the LISSMAC.
Yeah, when we're running a good production job, at the end of the day, we'll go down through it and vacuum off the, mainly the D2 especially, because that's where the heavy slag gets knocked off.
Okay.
So we'll keep that pretty clean.
All right.
And then like usually on a weekend, we'll go through both machines and vacuum it out and grease them and take care of them that way. So, you know, weekly, daily we grease the fittings that need to be done.
Yep.
And then there's periods of times where, you know, the machine is not used, but when we do use it, we take care of it that way. Yeah. For having it for 2 years, it's in really good condition. It's a valuable piece of equipment, both in the purchase of it and the impact it takes for the, you know, is for the plant. So we keep, you know, we don't want to lose it, so we keep it in pretty good shape. A couple of our accounts, you know, we will cut one part, you know, 5,000 at a crack. Every one of those had to be cleaned by hand, and the slag on this, the way we cut this, the slag ends up being pretty, or the draw is pretty thick, so it took a while for someone to chip it by hand and then grind it back down. We run it through the LISSMAC and, you know, 5,000 parts. They're 3/8 and they're 1/2 inch, so they're not that heavy. We could rifle through those in a day and a half.
Wow.
You know, so.
And what did it take you before?
We got lucky. We picked up this contract about the same time we got the LISSMAC, so it kind of fell into place.
Okay.
But if I imagine us doing this by hand, we probably couldn't do. We wouldn't retain the work because we wouldn't be efficient enough to make a margin on it. We would bury ourselves in packaging or cleaning costs. So the LISSMAC is primarily the reason we have this one account, and we make very well on it. It's a great account.
Great to hear. Let's talk about installation and training. When you bought the machine, we sent a service tech out. How many days did they spend with you with the machine? What was the learning curve? Things like that.
We had a pre-installation kit, so my maintenance fellow, Jim Bob, and I, we set the machine up, leveled it all off and set up, and then your guys came in, tweaked that setup, that installation that we did, and he ran through the screens, and I gotta be honest with you, there's a little, when you first get the machine, because there's so many components, there's so many variables to the machine, you know, for the aggressiveness of both. If you buy two, you got to deal with the D2 and the XL, so it took a while to figure out the screens and the impact and changing dimensions and stuff. So the consumable for the machine itself, for both the pins, the tungsten pins, are incredibly long. I mean, we do some pretty aggressive.
Yeah. So you've had the machine for 2 years. Have you replaced a set of pins?
No, we've turned them around.
That's it.
You guys said just flip them the other way when your one side is wore. We've done that. The belts, the grinding belts.
So the grinding, so that's in the D2 machine with the pins. So you haven't, after 2 years, you haven't had to replace that. Moving into the second machine, the G2 S2, the grinding belts in front that are 2 on top and 2 on bottom. That's what you seem to go through quite a bit, because that's handling the grinding, kind of the final grind after the D2 machine hits it. And those belts, you tend to wear those out pretty quick.
You find yourself using those to really clean up what comes from the D2.
And when you say quick, what does you go through those more often? What is that time frame? Does that mean a week? Does that mean a day? Does that mean?
It depends on the work we're doing, you know, and how we say. I would say we'll go about every other day. We'll change the belt out just due to wear, but 2 to 3 days.
Okay.
It's nothing where you say, holy cow, we have a problem here. We're going through a lot of these belts. It's normal wear. Yeah. No more than you would expect from a belt in that type.
So then after the grinding belts, you have 4 sand block belts, 2 on top, 2 on bottom. Have you, in 2 years, how many times have you replaced those?
We haven't replaced them at all.
Just recently, in 2 years, we decided to put a new set on there.
And we had them. And when we purchased the machine, you guys suggested to buy a set of consumables.
Yep.
So we did that, and we're only now, after 2 years, deploying that extra set. So
that's great. So before the LISSMAC machine, how many people would you have in the packaging or the grinding department that had to clean up the parts?
Well, before the LISSMAC machine, I actually had to have 2 shifts of packagers or cleaners.
Okay.
Now we've eliminated the second shift packaging crew, and we only do production on second shift. So on the first shift with the LISSMAC, we have three people that'll take care of the brunt of the packaging. And then if we deploy the LISSMAC comes into play, we pull another person in. So because you need 2 people in the LISSMAC, you know, to feed it and unload it, and then we keep two other folks, you know, doing the other grinding and packaging.
Yeah, because some parts may fall under the size requirement, the minimum part length that we have of 6 inches by 2 inches wide. Yeah. So you still have to have somebody to handle some of those parts.
Yeah.
However, LISSMAC is coming up with some new equipment that can handle those smaller parts, and we'll have to show you that at a later date. How can companies justify this equipment? It's having the 2 machines, and then you also went with the conveyors. How do you justify this investment as far as increasing production? Is it a reduction of staff, or is it repurposing those people? How did you come up with that, and do you have any hard numbers to support?
It's all of what you said. It's the safety that we talked about. It's the efficiency, the opportunity upstream. You know, in a job that we would take a week, we knew we had to take a week or 4 or 5 days to clean. Now we only need a day and a half. That opens up some capacity on the machines in the packaging department. So the efficiency, the safety is a huge factor. The reliability, the consistency. If you put a skid of our parts next to our competitors that doesn't have a LISSMAC, you could tell the difference in our, immediately the quality of the part. And then as far as the cost, you know, we do a very good job of financially understanding the investment we're going to do. And the first year that we purchased the machine, with depreciation and manpower allocation, by the end of the year we were on the positive side.
Okay.
You know, so it paid for itself and plus some.
So what was your impression of seeing the machine and seeing how it works? What the quality of craftsmanship?
Oh, the machine itself. It's very robust, built very well. It's very. When you open up the doors and you look inside it, you can see some really heavy-duty motors. The chassis is well built. It's here for the long haul. It's very well built. I have no issues with it at all. I'm worrying about like down the road replacing it. I don't know what we'll get out of the machine, but you know, I'm anticipating 20 years at least.
How did you discover the LISSMAC solution?
Oh, it's a funny story. I was going through the FabTech magazine and I saw your little ad. And we were close enough, and being in Buffalo and you guys being in Albany, and I spoke to one of your salespeople. And I said, I'd like to come up with some parts and run them through your machine. And there was no problem, so I threw my worst parts in the back of my pickup truck. My maintenance guy drove to Albany. We got there, we ran the parts through. It did just what it said it was going to do, you know, the machine. So it was a no-brainer. Came back, I told our folks here, and within I think a year of negotiations and stuff, we bought 2 machines, one up in Canada and one down here. So.
What made you go with the conveyors? Some companies try to buy the machine, or will buy the machine without the conveyors. How did you justify adding that piece, and what has the conveyors done for you? Can you imagine doing it without the conveyors?
No, you need it. The conveyor is integrated with the machine. It taps off the speed. It's a well-built conveyor. We haven't had any issues with the conveyor because you don't. Once you deploy a machine, you want to move on. You got your next continuous improvement. So you buy. You know, if the company that produces it recommends this, you like to go with it. You can go offline and do other stuff, but in the long run, I don't think it's for this particular operation. You want to just buy the original equipment.
Yeah. For steel service centers, it makes sense, or large OEMs to go ahead with the conveyors.
Yeah. And I regret some of the entry belt. We should have bought another one of those, and so we need to improve our system as well. We're looking at other ways of utilizing the LISSMAC machine to improve even more.
Selling a machine is one thing, but servicing the machines after the sale, how has LISSMAC service been for you? Oh,
it's been great. Norbert, Greg, direct line to these guys. They'll pick up the phone if I call them. The service at the desk, when you call in the service desk at the office, they're very, very responsible. When we need something shipped overnight, if something does happen, it happens right away. Very great support,
Good.
very great support.
Well, to wrap it up, Don, I want to appreciate the time that you gave us to shoot some film out there, to see your process, see how the LISSMAC machine works well with your company, and just really appreciate you being a great customer and allowing us to do that.
Yeah, no problem at all. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.